Fox News alert with breaking news on a major financial crisis brewing in Europe. A crisis putting the United States and the world economy at serious risk. Welcome to America Live, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Finance officials in Europe are at this moment in the middle of desperate meetings to save the euro. If that currency fails, analysts are predicting now it will send the United States, Asia, and the entire global economy into a, quote, debt-induced financial tsunami. Economists now offering this dire warning, saying if the euro crashes, European bank lending could freeze, stock markets would likely crash, and Europe's economies would crater, affecting the United States in more ways than one. Stu Varney is host of Varney & Company on the Fox Business Network and joins me now. Stu, when you look at the AP coverage of this, it cannot be overstated. The dire warnings that they are offering, saying that this meeting today in Brussels to save the euro has taken on an air of desperation, talking about how if this euro collapses, we could be looking at a situation globally that is far more devastating than we even saw here in 2008 after the mortgage implosion and the debt crunch that followed. Is that overstating it in your view?
No, it is not. In fact, the crunch is here. It is happening now, and it's happening at breakneck pace. There are crisis meetings taking place in Washington, D.C. The President is there, Mrs. Clinton is there, the Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, is there, Harry Reid is there, the top political leadership meeting with the top leaders from Europe. In Brussels, there's another crisis meeting of European finance ministers. They're trying to get together a lot of money, trillions, for this bailout fund, and they're having a very hard time doing it. You mentioned that AP report. They're using expressions like desperate, dire, and they're actually using frequently now in Europe the expression the collapse of the euro. Megyn, the downward spiral is starting. Governments are finding it very difficult and extremely expensive to borrow money, so they can't pay their bills, so the banks are losing their shirts, and some economies are beginning the early stages of a crash. All of this is happening right now.
All right, let's talk about how this is going to affect the United States and why we are so interested in watching it so closely. You've got, for example, Italy, which needs over $600 billion. That's how in debt they are. They don't have it to pay, so they need somebody to bail them out. They're not the only government in Europe. Those countries that are part of the euro, who participate in that currency, don't want to bail Italy out. And yet there are constricting sort of monetary oversights that are looking to these European countries to say, you know, we're all in it together. We can't let one fail. It's going to affect us all. In turn, they seem to be looking at the United States for help, Stu. And we seem to be mulling it over, even though the president said yesterday we're not going to pay to bail them out. But we seem to be mulling it over because we also have a lot of skin in this game.
Well, internally, the Europeans just don't have enough money to do the job, and the Germans will not pay up. So they're looking externally to organizations like the IMF, and America contributes 17% of all the money that goes into the IMF. You can bet that at those crisis meetings in Washington right now, the role of the IMF in providing some kind of bailout money, that is being actively discussed.
Okay, so wait, let me just stop you there. So even though it wouldn't be America directly cutting a check to the Europeans, through the IMF, we could indeed wind up contributing. But is that likely? Geithner's got a seat on the board of the IMF, Ben Bernanke has a seat on that board, and we have our president saying, don't look to us, we got our own problems.
You can bet that America will move heaven and earth to prevent the euro crashing. If that means putting in $500 billion or even $1 trillion from the IMF and contributing American money to that, so be it. Because the last thing America wants, and especially President Obama, is to see the European economy implode, because that would ripple over here. It would hurt our economy. The president does not want to see that. Well, we've already committed $500 billion, not America, but the IMF committed $500 billion in 2009. That was to get over the 2008 crisis. More money would be required if the IMF is to play a significant role in any current rescue of Europe. We're talking serious money here, Megyn, and I'm not sure it's there.
This sounds like another too big to fail scenario. You know, Wall Street imploded. They said they were too big to fail. We had to use taxpayer dollars to bail them out. Otherwise, we were all going to have to pay. Now we're looking over at Europe. It's too big to fail. The United States will suffer if we let that. And here we are talking about the IMF and what
Yes.
role it should play.
It is
Last word.
precisely the same situation. Are we going to just let things crash or spend some serious money? Either Germans, Americans, or the rest of the world, are we going to let them crash? Odds are no. We'll print some money.
Wow. For Italy and Europe and ultimately ourselves. Stu, thank you. Well, at the same time as Europe's
If I was you, I'd think about buying some silver.